The Fifth Element, 1997. 20 Weird Facts You Didn't Know. It wasn't just a sci-fi film. It was a fever dream stitched together from decades of obsession, fragments of comic book panels, and the neon pulse of a director's teenage imagination. In 1997, The Fifth Element exploded onto the screen, a chaotic blend of opera, explosions, couture fashion, and intergalactic absurdity that divided critics but hypnotized audiences. At its heart was Luc Besson's vision, conceived when he was just 16, nurtured in secret for over 20 years before being unleashed in all its bizarre glory. Behind the hyper-colored cityscapes and gravity-defying chase scenes, there was a set brimming with tension, arguments over costume designs, last-minute casting changes, and an invented alien language whispered between takes. Every frame feels calculated, yet the truth is far messier: improvised fight scenes, props that broke mid-shoot, and plot twists dictated by practical accidents rather than grand design. These aren't just production notes. They're strange, unpolished fragments that reveal the surreal ecosystem behind one of cinema's most unusual blockbusters. These are 20 weird facts you didn't know about The Fifth Element, a descent into the neon underbelly where every dazzling image hides an even stranger story. Fact Uxie, a 16-year-old's obsession. Long before The Fifth Element lit up the big screen, Luc Besson was just a restless teenager in France, scribbling visions of a futuristic New York and a mysterious savior in the margins of his school notebooks. At 16, he imagined the story in vivid detail: the flying cars, the alien opera, the impossible romance. For over 2 decades, those fragments lived only in his mind and a few worn sketchbooks, surviving career shifts, smaller film projects, and the ebb and flow of Hollywood trends. By the time cameras rolled in the mid-92nd, the idea had matured, but it had also grown stranger, infused with Besson's evolving tastes and cinematic ambitions. The long gestation meant the film carried the raw passion of youth mixed with the confidence of experience. It's why The Fifth Element feels both impulsive and meticulously designed. Like a dream dreamt for so long it began to believe itself into reality. Fact number 2. From trilogy to one film. Besson didn't initially plan for The Fifth Element to be a single 2-hour spectacle. Early drafts sprawled into a trilogy, mapping an expansive universe with multiple arcs and deeper explorations of alien civilizations. Budget concerns, scheduling pressures, and studio demands forced a brutal condensation of the narrative. Entire subplots vanished, and side characters were erased before the first day of filming. What remained was the concentrated core: the chase for the elemental stones, and the race to save humanity. This compression made the story denser, stranger, and left tantalizing gaps where entire worlds had been cut away. In a sense, the film's eccentric, sometimes disjointed energy is the ghost of that larger saga, still flickering behind the final cut. Fact number 3. Bruce Willis at the last minute. The role of Korben Dallas was not destined for Bruce Willis from the start. In fact, several high-profile actors were approached, including Mel Gibson and Sylvester Stallone, before the part finally landed in Willis's hands. By the time he was officially signed, the production schedule was already in motion, forcing him to jump straight into costume fittings and stunt rehearsals. Willis brought a dry, unflappable charm to the character, tempering the film's outrageous visuals with a grounded, reluctant hero energy. His late arrival also added an unplanned freshness to the role. He hadn't lived through months of pre-production politics, so his performance carried a subtle outsider's detachment, perfectly mirroring Korben's own attitude toward the chaos around him. Fact number 4. The role everyone turned down. Before Willis's casting, the search for Korben Dallas was almost cursed. The film's eccentric tone and the ambitious visual style made some actors wary. Gibson passed, citing fatigue from other action-heavy roles. Stallone's team hesitated over the script's humor and surrealism. Even a few European stars declined, unsure if the film would resonate internationally. Each rejection reshaped the casting approach until Besson and producers decided they needed someone who could embody the everyman without being swallowed by the spectacle. That search and the mounting list of no's only heightened the satisfaction when Willis agreed, adding a bankable star to a film that otherwise felt like a massive gamble. Fact, film. An alien tongue for two. One of the film's most curious inventions is the divine language spoken by Leeloo. This wasn't gibberish, it was a fully constructed linguistic system developed by Luc Besson, complete with grammar, syntax, and over 400 words. Besson and Milla Jovovich, who played Leeloo, practiced speaking it together in secret for months. On set, they would occasionally slip into the language during breaks, confusing the crew and adding to the mystique of Leeloo's otherworldly presence. The private exchanges weren't just for fun. They deepened Jovovich's embodiment of the character, letting her think and react as someone who literally came from another world. The fact that only she and Besson understood it turned their collaboration into an intimate, almost conspiratorial creative partnership. Fact 6. Jean-Paul Gaultier's fashion fever dream. When Luc Besson tapped avant-garde designer Jean-Paul Gaultier to create the costumes, he wasn't asking for subtlety, he wanted a fashion explosion. Gaultier designed over 1,000 unique outfits for the film, not just for the leads but for background extras who appeared for mere seconds. His sketches were wild. Rubberized bodysuits, plastic corsets, mesh armor, and outrageous headpieces. He even oversaw fittings for crowd scenes, ensuring every extra looked like they'd stepped out of a futuristic couture runway. Some designs were so elaborate they required handlers just to help actors move between takes. This obsessive detail added layers to the film's visual richness. The audience might not register every costume, but the world feels lived in, because every passerby looks like they belong in that neon, chaotic future. Fact number 7. The unchoreographed fights. Some of the film's most dynamic action sequences, particularly those featuring Milla Jovovich's Leeloo, were not meticulously choreographed in advance. Due to time constraints and Jovovich's quick adaptability, Besson allowed several fight scenes to be improvised on set. Jovovich's background in modeling and dance gave her the physical control to execute fluid movements, while stunt coordinators stood by to adapt to her instincts. This approach lent an organic, unpredictable rhythm to the action. Leeloo's attacks feel as if they're guided by instinct rather than rehearsed combat training. It also kept her alien nature intact. She fought in a way no human-trained fighter would, because her movements weren't shaped by traditional fight choreography. Fact number 8. Opera at the edge of chaos. The iconic diva dance opera scene is a masterclass in cinematic balancing acts, a fusion of high art and sci-fi absurdity. The operatic portion was performed by Albanian soprano Inva Mula, but the rapid-fire, impossible-sounding notes in the latter half were digitally enhanced. Human vocal cords simply couldn't execute them. Filming the sequence was a logistical nightmare. The set had to accommodate not only the elaborate stage and costumed extras, but also a hidden sound rig for playback, and Milla Jovovich's fight scene that erupts mid-performance. The contrast, a soaring aria against sudden bursts of violence, became one of the most memorable tonal juxtapositions in 90-second cinema. Fact: Devine, a miniature metropolis. Before CGI dominated sci-fi, The Fifth Element leaned heavily on practical effects. The sprawling, vertical cityscape of future New York wasn't built in a computer, it was painstakingly crafted as a miniature. Some sections towering over 20 feet, model makers constructed hundreds of tiny flying cars, each hand-painted and rigged for motion. Multiple layers of glass and camera passes created the illusion of depth and density. In some shots, the miniature work was blended with early digital effects, but the tactile detail remains unmistakable. This hybrid approach gave the film's world a sense of physicality that pure CGI of the era could never match. Fact number 10. Ruby Rod's secret inspiration. Chris Tucker's hyperactive, flamboyant talk show host, Ruby Rod, is unforgettable, and that's exactly how Besson intended it. The character's look, from the leopard print bodysuits to the gravity-defying hair, was inspired by the musician Prince. While Prince was approached for the role, he declined, reportedly baffled by the script. Tucker stepped in, bringing his own manic energy and ad-libbed flourishes to the performance. The result is a character so outrageous that he somehow fits perfectly into the film's surreal tapestry. a human embodiment of the film's "too much is never enough" ethos. Fact number 11. Culture clash behind the camera. Despite its French director and European production roots, The Fifth Element was heavily financed and distributed by American studios. This mix created a cultural tug-of-war behind the scenes. Luc Besson preferred a looser, instinctive shooting style, while parts of the U.S. crew pushed for rigid Hollywood scheduling and structure. Differences in working hours, set etiquette, and even catering sparked tension. In interviews, some crew members admitted they were baffled by Besson's willingness to rewrite scenes the night before shooting. Yet this creative friction also brought unexpected benefits. The film's blend of European visual artistry and American blockbuster pacing owes much to that push-and-pull dynamic. Fact number 12. A schedule pushed to the limit. Principal photography for The Fifth Element was originally planned for a tightly controlled shoot, but the combination of elaborate sets, costume complexities, and Besson's perfectionist streak caused delays. Some days ended without completing a single planned scene. Milla Jovovich's elaborate costumes often required hours to put on, and action sequences demanded multiple retakes from different camera angles. Each delay had a cascading effect, forcing the crew into long nights and weekend shoots to catch up. By the end, the production had run significantly over schedule, yet the footage captured was so visually rich that most involved felt the extra time was worth it. Fact number 13. Easter eggs for the obsessed. Besson peppered the film with subtle details designed to reward multiple viewings. Street signs in the futuristic city use a mix of Earth languages and invented scripts. Background news reports reference events never explained in the main story. Some props, like Korben's taximeter, display nonsensical numbers that are actually inside jokes between the director and his team. One of the most hidden Easter eggs, a split-second shot of a billboard advertising a fictional soda brand that appears in several of Besson's other films, linking them into a loose, unofficial cinematic universe. Fans have spent years cataloging these micro-details, turning the film into a puzzle box of visual trivia. Fact number 14. Eric Serra's unorthodox score. The film's soundtrack, composed by Eric Serra, broke away from traditional orchestral sci-fi music. Serra blended electronic beats, ethnic instrumentation, and pop rhythms, creating a sonic landscape as strange as the visuals. For the chase scenes, he layered Middle Eastern percussion with synthesized bass lines. For quieter moments, he used sparse, echoing melodies that felt alien, yet intimate. The unconventional mix divided critics. Some praised its daring originality, others found it distracting, but it undeniably gave The Fifth Element an identity unlike any other blockbuster of its time. To this day, Serra's score remains one of the most polarizing elements of the film. Fact number 15. The hidden director cameo. Like Alfred Hitchcock before him, Luc Besson couldn't resist stepping into his own movie. His cameo is almost impossible to spot. He appears briefly as one of the airport gate workers, partially obscured in the background as passengers board a shuttle. Blink, and you'll miss him, which is exactly the point. Besson has said he enjoys leaving these ghostly fingerprints in his films, visible only to the most devoted fans. In The Fifth Element, the cameo feels like a wink from the architect of this chaotic universe, quietly reminding you that even in the most elaborate worlds, the creator is always lurking somewhere just out of sight. Fact number 16. The heavy truth about the stones. The elemental stones, earth, air, fire, and water, looked deceptively manageable on screen, but in reality, the props were unusually heavy and awkward to handle. Constructed from dense resin to withstand repeated handling and close-up shots, each stone weighed several kilograms. Actors often had to fake ease while lifting or passing them, and multiple takes were ruined when a stone slipped or thudded loudly onto the set floor. The weight also limited how long actors could hold them in extended shots, forcing the crew to design clever camera angles and quick cuts to hide fatigue. What appeared on screen as mystical artifacts were, for the cast, stubborn and slightly dangerous hunks of plastic. Fact number 17. Last-minute script surgery. Besson's vision for The Fifth Element was fluid right up to and sometimes during filming. Scenes were rewritten overnight, with fresh dialogue handed to actors the morning of the shoot. While this kept the film feeling spontaneous, it also meant some performers had to improvise emotional beats without rehearsal. In some cases, whole exchanges were cut and replaced on the spot, often to streamline pacing or sharpen comedic timing. This constant tinkering drove some crew members crazy but also created unexpectedly sharp moments of humor and tension. Ironically, a film about chaos saving the universe was itself shaped by chaos behind the scenes. Fact number 18. Deleted worlds. Entire locations and sequences were filmed, but never made it into the final cut. One of the most ambitious deletions was an extended spaceport scene that introduced more alien species and expanded Ruby Rod's antics. Another scrapped sequence showed Leeloo exploring parts of New York's underbelly, encountering strange subcultures. These scenes were trimmed for pacing, but their absence left gaps that fans still speculate about. Concept art and storyboards for the deleted worlds occasionally surface at conventions, offering tantalizing glimpses into what might have been a far stranger and more expansive fifth element. Fact number 19. The critics versus the box office. Upon release, The Fifth Element split critics down the middle. Some praised its bold vision and originality. Others dismissed it as incoherent spectacle. Yet audiences embraced it, particularly outside the United States. In France, it became one of the highest-grossing films of the year, and in markets like Japan and Russia, its visual flair and eccentric humor found devoted followings. The disparity between critical reception and commercial success only cemented its cult status, proving that sometimes audiences are more adventurous than reviewers give them credit for. Fact number 20. A legacy in neon and fabric. Over 2 decades later, The Fifth Element continues to influence sci-fi, cinema, music videos, and fashion. Designers still reference Gaultier's costuming in runway collections. Filmmakers borrow its candy-colored dystopias for visual inspiration. Its blend of absurdity and sincerity paved the way for modern cult hits that dared to be both ridiculous and heartfelt. More than a product of its time, it has become a touchstone for creative risk-taking, a reminder that the weirdest visions often leave the deepest cultural footprints. Bonus fact: the audition that changed everything. Before Milla Jovovich became Leeloo, the role was the subject of an exhaustive search. Hundreds of actresses auditioned, from seasoned stars to complete unknowns. What set Jovovich apart wasn't just her striking look, it was the way she inhabited the character's innocence and otherworldliness without a single line of English. During her audition, she improvised movements that felt part dance, part martial arts, weaving them together with bursts of nonsensical syllables. Besson was captivated. In that moment, he realized she could not only embody Leeloo, but also make the alien language feel alive. The chemistry between them was immediate, leading to months of private rehearsals in the invented tongue. That single audition didn't just win her the part, it shaped the emotional heartbeat of The Fifth Element. Which of these hidden details shifted the way you see The Fifth Element? Was it the teenage dream that grew into a neon epic? The improvised fights that made Leeloo feel truly alien? Or the opera scene that danced between elegance and chaos? Share the fact that surprised you most in the comments, and tell us which film secrets you want us to unearth next. Subscribe and stay tuned, because the world of cinema is full of strange, untold stories, and we've only just begun to open the door.